Let's talk now about Barcelona. Well, first of all, the super clubs, asterisk, the super clubs in turmoil, Barcelona and Juventus, by the way. The first one is Barcelona and Alaves. They tied 1-1. Sergio Agüero, by the way, was admitted to hospital in that game with cardiac issues. So our best thoughts to him as he recuperates. The Xavi latest, by the way, is that Al Sadd, the club, said in response to what's circulating recently, management reaffirms that Xavi has a 2-year contract, et cetera, but all arrows are pointing for Xavi to soon make this move. As for Verona and Juventus, Verona win 2-1. Gio Simeone, that is. 6 goals in 2 games, 6 career goals against Juventus as well. Incredible. And the top 4 finish for Juventus is in serious doubt. I would say top 6 right now is in serious doubt. So thoughts from those 2 clubs, Barcelona and Juventus, 2 big clubs, historic clubs, and they are in trouble. Joe Exotic.
Well, I would say Juve feels like they're in a better spot because they actually have a manager with a ton of experience that feasibly knows what he's doing. He's already proven that in his career. Barcelona don't, though it does seem like Xavi's coming in. And what I'll say very quickly about Barcelona is that they've taken 16 points from their first 11 games of the season. That's their worst start at this stage in the 3-point era since back in the early 2000s. So yes, and that's the time when Xavi started to emerge. So maybe it's a perfect time for him to come back and help save the team. Memphis Depay, though, scored a banger against Alaves. I think you have to build around him if he does come back in, obviously, and you try to figure it out. And if they can find some money to spend, in probably next summer, then maybe they'll have a good team next year. This year, though, it's looking a little thin. I don't think they have the depth. I don't think their starters are of that class of Barcelona that we know. It's kind of like when you see Fellaini at Manchester United. You're like, nah, he doesn't. Yeah, he's a good Premier League player, but he's not a Manchester United player. And I feel like when I look at Barcelona, I see a lot of that. Hey, he's okay. He's solid, but is he a Barcelona player? And they just have too many of those types of players out on the field. I guess I'm thinking about Eric Garcia, who just really has been unimpressive for me in particular. Sorry, I shouldn't have thrown him under the bus, but I did. I'm Joe Exotic. Everybody suck it. Okay,
Joe will hold no prisoners. You like that pun?
I don't know. That goes kind of deep now that he's actually in prison. But I will say that Barcelona, I feel like, is still in a lot of turmoil. Whereas Juve, we were just talking about them being in this type of peril 6 weeks ago. Then they went on a nice run. And everybody was like, all right, it's all good. We're back to it. And now they're back under the gun a little bit. I think they just ran into a Simeone who's playing, Simeone, who's just scoring bangers only right now. I guess he had a tap in, but 6 goals over his last 2 games and kind of the wrong time to catch Hellas Verona.
Yeah, Natalie Cross obviously saying that Xavi might want to reconsider that Barcelona move. I agree with that. I feel like perhaps, and maybe I'm a little bit jaded just because of Serie A. We've seen so many legends go back to Serie A itself, and then they just get cycled out. They get their one shot, and then they go to it. Then they find their rhythm in other clubs in Serie A or Serie B as actual managers if they want to be managers. And so I'm a bit worried about him and his status as a legend of the club coming back during a time that it's really, really tough. But I know James Benge was really excited, saying it was a great time for him to arrive at the club, to be able to rebuild those types of things and maybe pull back the philosophy and the belief around the club. And maybe that starts with, La Masia and some of the things that need to be rebuilt or fixed there so that they're not losing that talent or potential talent to other academies around the world. But yeah, Barcelona for me was one that I looked at Kun Agüero being potentially an answer. So when he goes down, obviously missing most of the season, and once he's ready to play, obviously has this heart issue. I don't know what it is. I was trying to read a lot about it online, and people were saying it had happened before, and they were, in the last couple of weeks he had a little bit of an issue, or years ago he had an issue of some kind, and not a great look. And then when I think about just sort of where he's at in his career, I started to think a little bit more realistically and saying, well, what could he actually possibly do for this team and the quality that they have around? He needs players that can run at him where he can spin off the shoulder and he can play in and out of spaces, 1-2, get around the guy, quick diagonal runs in space. Because he scores a lot of goals from, difficult angles where he gets a slotted ball in, a diagonal little this and that. And if he can't get into those spots, he's not going to carry the team from outside the penalty area and things like that. So I'm wondering if he was ever going to be the right answer. Obviously with Messi, that's a completely different type of combination play between the two of them. But once he leaves, I maybe I was just putting too much on his shoulders of what he could contribute. And now with this issue, it just seems like, as Jimmy said, you look at it and you go, is this Barcelona quality? Is this Barcelona quality? And now you look at some of these players and you say, yeah, they are Barcelona quality, but the person next to them isn't. And that means that they're now not Barcelona quality. And you can't have a bunch of players that need players around them to bring them up to Barca quality if you're going to have a bunch of individuals or not be the team of the past. Obviously, they'll never be the team of Messi ever again. And then with regard to Juventus, I still like the way that they're scrapping games. Just so you guys know, for anybody that didn't watch, when Weston McKennie's on the field, Juventus won 1-0. They lost that game. They lost that game 2-1 though. When overall, but no. That jokes aside, they again, Jimmy said it's an informed goal scorer right now, but it doesn't excuse the fact that I think they still need to be able to find a way to consistently keep those runs going. If they're going to play ugly, if they're going to scrap out results, it's a good identity to have. But then you don't really get to have those off days. That becomes the MO of the team. We've seen the Chelseas of the past, Atletico Madrid, others that are just sort of like, this is what we do now. And now it's going to be up to this next game, the next match, or the next couple matches in Serie A for them to show that, it's not going to happen every time. That's difficult to do, but we're going to bounce back, and the new us is going to win more than we're going to lose.
Here's one for you. Is it probably maybe the fact that also these other teams across both leagues are becoming more competitive? They're understanding the game a little better. Their seasons, their culture in both leagues. Like, look at Real Betis on one side. We talked about Fiorentina as well, kind of resuscitating themselves. So here's a question for you, everybody watching. Comments: which club is less likely to finish top 4 this season? Juventus, who are right now 9th with only 15 points, or Barcelona in La Liga, who are also 9th with 16 points. And I'll throw that question to the boys here, but answer in the comment section, which club is less likely to finish top 4 this season, Juve or Barcelona? Joe, what do you think?
I'm going to go Barcelona. I have them finishing 3rd in their Champions League group. I thought they're going to drop into the Europa League. That could still happen. They got Dynamo Kiev this upcoming week in Ukraine. Obviously, we'll have our Champions League preview, for that one coming up on a future pod. I think that Juve have the ingredients mostly to have success. They've added some pieces. If Chiellini and Bonucci can stay healthy, I think that makes a difference. But they've given up a lot of goals, and that's very unlike Juve in a lot of different ways. I'm seeing a stat here where they've conceded 15 goals in their first Serie A, in their first 11 Serie A matches of the season for the first time since 1961-62. And that it has to hurt them, I feel like. And Allegri, I mean, if I was the coach, I would take that personally. That whatever I'm doing at training isn't working to kind of shut that down, that side of the ball, when they have plenty of players that can go out there and put in a shift to get a clean sheet. And I know that Szczesny wasn't great to start the season, but he's been okay since then. And now you just got to get that side of the ball. And then sounds crazy, and I can't believe this is even going to come out of my mouth, but
well, you're Joe Exotic. You can say anything crazy.
That's true. Allegri, I feel like, should act like Carol Baskin. I'm just kidding. Allegri should act like Ole Gunnar, and almost maybe try to add one more piece to your defensive side so that you make sure you've tightened that up so you can kind of go forward. He did it in the Champions League against Chelsea, and obviously it worked to great effect when they won 1-0. He might have to do that domestically as well, because I do think that they have the talent to go forward, but there's just something amiss with this team. And until they can unlock that, I think they'll get top 4, but I don't think they're going to be challenging for the Scudetto.
Well, Allegri has taken Juventus to an all-week getaway training session, by the way, so it'll be interesting to see there. Heath, very quick, Luigi, Juventus or Barcelona, who's not getting a top 4?
Weirdly, I would want to say Juventus in this case, but I'm having trouble figuring out who the 4 would be, right? When I look at, because I just think about Juventus and their competition for a title every year, but when I look at Roma, when I look at AC Milan, Inter. Oh, I guess maybe I'm going to go with. Actually, I'm going to stay with Juventus on this one. I think Barcelona are the most likely, but I also think there's a potential that Juventus don't finish in the top 4. When you think about the teams that have stepped up, Napoli in that context, AC Milan, Inter Milan, and then when you look beyond that, you've still got your Roma, you've still got your Atalanta, and I think it's going to be tough for Juventus to get out of that pact. That a 4th place finish, I think, would be the top for them. But very well likely could miss all of that. When I think about the team, though, it seems old. They don't have that ability to stretch teams quickly. Yes, they do have a few pacey players. All those players are up there in age when you think about Cuadrado and others like that. They just, like Jimmy said, need some of that fresh blood defensively. They need to have some of that blood in transition as well. Obviously, you have Bernardeschi, Chiesa, some of these players that can do these things. But we're talking about Juventus here, a dominant Juventus for a decade. That it just feels like they're at the end of an era, and very much like a Barcelona, where they're just in this transitional phase that they've got to go out and find some differences. And hopefully with Ronaldo leaving, they have some wages or wage capabilities to be able to go out and spend.